you were all over this, had this early yesterday. Just, how did this all come about with Morgan Turner? Was he Sam Pittman's first choice? Just, what were some of the developments you saw over the last couple of days with Arkansas's new tight ends coach?
Yeah, well, it got pretty quiet, I think, first of all. And this was a name that just kind of was passed around a little bit in circles behind the scenes, and started checking into it, bouncing it off some other people. Yeah, he's a legitimate name to look at. I'm not really sure, to be honest, right now, how it actually started. I don't even know what the connections are. We'll probably find out a lot from Sam Pittman coming up here on tomorrow's press conference, but not really sure how it started, what the connections are even in the background. I know that he's recruited Arkansas in the past. He actually recruited Hudson Henry to Arkansas. If you remember, Hudson came down to Arkansas and Stanford. So when I was looking at his bio, I was like, this guy has Arkansas as a recruiting territory. That's kind of random for Stanford. But when you look at the guy, it from a resume standpoint, it's pretty impressive. He's been at Stanford since 2013. He's coached several NFL tight ends, like maybe more than Stanford might have more NFL tight ends than anybody else in the country. Zach Ertz probably being at the top of the list. So, when you look at, and Arkansas is going to have some work to do. He's actually got in-home visits with Arkansas tight ends today and tomorrow. But when you look at the guys that they had committed, in his background, recruiting tight ends and coaching tight ends, I think Arkansas will probably be a pretty intriguing job to top tight end coaches out there, just because of the guys that they have committed. Now, they've got some work to do to keep them because other schools are coming in on them. But that's a good starting point, I think, for a potential tight ends coach. Obviously, David Shaw at Stanford, who was there for a long time, stepped down. So he's looking for an opportunity out there, and Arkansas was looking for an opportunity as well.
You mentioned it a couple times. I think the biggest thing now is those 3 4-stars that are coming in next year. What do you think the chances are that they wind up staying at Arkansas, all 3 of them? Maybe some of them follow Dow Loggins. Maybe some of them just completely, look for a new opportunity.
Well, they've got some work to do. I don't think there's any question about that. I mean, I think Jaden Ham is probably the most likely to stick on board, just based on what we're hearing. And, just talking with Danny West, who's our primary recruiting guy at 247 at Hawgsports. I think that he's probably the most likely to stick. And then, probably after him, you would say Shamar Easter, being an Arkansas guy. Easter's a really talented tight end. All of them are very talented. But, I think you could probably look for Easter to potentially take a visit to Carolina, maybe even Clemson also. Just heard a few things behind the scenes. And that's natural. I mean, he hasn't even done Morgan Turner hasn't even done his in-home visits with these guys yet. And then we know Luke has had Nick Saban in his home just like last week, I guess. And so I would, keep an eye out on Alabama for him. So those are 3 guys that Dow Loggins was the primary recruiter for. And, Dow obviously did an outstanding job. Really 5 of the top 10 commitments were Dow Loggins guys, including, Micah Tease is another guy to keep an eye on, who's taking an official visit to Texas A&M. It's kind of weird and unfortunate at the same time, because we watched this class come together. This was a top 5 recruiting class for a long time. And people, obviously were saying, well, they're not going to finish top 5. But the point was, they had never been top 5 for that long a stretch. When you're going down each month, they've never been top 5 in this month, never been top 5 in this month. Right now, they're 16th, which would still be the best finish ever for an Arkansas recruiting class. Best finish ever. And it just kind of stinks here. You're at the end, you're a week before National Signing Day, less than a week now, and there's concern about it unraveling here. So they've got a lot of work to do to keep these guys, but that's what happens when you go after big time recruits. And, even when you get them committed, you're still going to have to fight off big schools to keep them. And this situation is a little bit different, obviously, with Dow Loggins moving on, but it never changes. You never stop recruiting the guys, even when they're committed.
How concerning is it to be in this time of year with signing day right around the corner, and you have a tight ends coach who you just made official today, and you're without a defensive coordinator? I mean, this is obviously the time of year where those coaching carousel switches are being made all across the country. But when you're so close to that signing day, is it a concern for Arkansas to have a new guy and have also a spot not locked up yet?
Well, I don't think it's ideal. I think the Ron Roberts situation was unfortunate. It looked like it was their guy. Let's be honest. That was their guy. Auburn came with a better offer, what we're told, and Arkansas didn't, I guess, feel that he was worth what they were going to pay him. I'll be interested to see what that money is. But people think that there's just like 5 coaches out there who are possibilities. I mean, there's probably a guy in the NFL, who people might have forgot about, who was a linebackers coach at Ohio State or something, who has some kind of connection to Arkansas. I'm not saying that's specifically, I'm just giving a random example of all the coaches that are out there, still coaching teams, and coaches that are in the NFL. As we've seen, if you're going after an NFL, I'm not saying they are, but if you're going after an NFL coach, they've still got a lot going on. And so it's not ideal right now, obviously, to not have one with signing day, but that's just the kind of the way things are. Everything's just kind of been truncated, and you've got coaching searches, transfer portal, high school recruiting, all this stuff in December, which has become really the wildest month of the offseason. It used to be January because you had the February National Signing Day, and now it's December. But it used to be January just because you had the National Signing Day, you had coaching conventions and stuff like that, where coaches are being hired and fired and all that stuff. But now it's just everything's moved up earlier, and now we're in December, and it's pretty chaotic. And in fact, something that we said leading into this month was starting on December 5th, and really the week before, because players started into the transfer portal, or announcing they were going to enter the transfer portal. But, just kind of sit back and follow things and wait till January 15th, because it's a 45-day window. Wait till January 15th to decide which side of the freak out fence you're going to be on, because there's still a lot of opportunities for players to come in. Think about the guys that Arkansas got out of the transfer portal last year. And last check, Arkansas was tied for first in the country with 3 commitments already. We can't forget about Jacoby Criswell and, all the guys that have committed, Andrew Armstrong, Joshua Braun. I mean, those are 3 really nice transfer portal additions, and it's not going to stop with those 3. There's plenty more to come.
And then just circling back to Morgan Turner, just to wrap things up, when you look at Loggins and Turner, complete opposite resumes at the end of the day. Loggins almost took a step back to be a tight ends coach. He spoke about that yesterday in his press conference, just to show that he could recruit to get that first college opportunity. Then you have Turner, who's been a tight ends coach for the last 10 years. How does that dynamic, you think, change anything now for Arkansas behind the scenes, that you get a guy who has been a tight ends coach? I mean, this is his primary role.
Yeah, I think it's possibly different. Now, again, we're still finding out a lot about Turner. We haven't had a chance to talk to him or anything personally yet, but I would think that a guy like him, having that much experience, 9 years at Stanford as the tight ends coach, that to me would be a guy that really understands the ins and outs of the position. And I'm not saying Dow Loggins didn't understand that, but his background was quarterback, offensive coordinator. He'd never really coached tight ends before. Now, what we do know about Loggins is he's an outstanding recruiter. I mean, and he also oversaw the transition with Trey Knox to tight end, which worked out well. And I've always been a big Dow Loggins fan, wish him nothing but the best. But I am interested to see what this guy brings to the table in terms of, sometimes you have that, experience matters. It's the bottom line. And he has coached tight ends more. So we'll see if that pays off with the guys they have on campus right now. And also, I mean, that pedigree that he has with some of the guys that we mentioned, having coached in the NFL, or excuse me, that went on to the NFL at tight end. I mean, that's got to matter when you talk to recruits too. Like, I mean, look at this resume. These guys went to the NFL. I can send you there too. I mean, that's got to pay off for them in some kind of way.